Welcome back, day campers. Today, the gang discusses various programs and opportunities beyond our regular summer camp seasons. Extra weeks for kindred groups, nonprofits that align with your camp's mission, school groups, family picnics, corporate events, and I even know a camp that started a Renaissance fair. Maximize your impact and revenue potential, and know that you do not have to be located in Texas or Florida to do extended programming. Heck, you can even do it in Canada. This is the Day Camp Pod.
This is the Day Camp Pod from Go Camp Pro, bringing you the best ideas, strategies, and discussions in the day camp industry. You can find our show notes at daycamppodcast.com.
The Day Camp Podcast is brought to you by CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialist, go-to source for recreation solutions that will ensure that your camp thrives. Explore their website today at CRS or Rec. CRS is very fun. Scheduling shouldn't be so difficult and take as much time as it does. Come check out Camp Activities to learn all about their scheduling tools and they're specifically designed for camp by camp people. Save time, get rid of the mistakes, and get back to enjoying your summer. Find out more at camptivities.com. Let me tell you about CampMinder, the #1 camp database in the world. It has the most robust offerings and services found anywhere. Every feature works together to create a policy system that helps your camp office run more efficiently while giving your camp families state-of-the-art communication and financial. Check out the details at campminder.com. Welcome back to the Day Camp Podcast. I'm Andy Pritikin, Director of Liberty Lake in the Philly suburbs of New Jersey.
I'm Sam Thompson from Crystal Lake Park District in Crystal Lake, Illinois.
And I'm Jordana Grossinger. I'm the Director of Camp Robinhood in Ontario.
And we are joined today by Peggy Aylmer from where? What YMCA are you at, Peggy?
Well, now I'm at YMCA Camp Copaconic in Flint, Michigan.
Flint, Michigan, famous place for interesting reasons. Oh, that's awesome. So tell us let's dive in. How'd you get there? What's your camp story? How'd you start with this camp thing?
So I just started here in March, at the beginning of March. Before I was at Camp Duncan, which is another YMCA camp in like the Northwest Chicago suburbs. They did a little bit of restructuring here and had a new position opening, which is the one that I've got now. It's Senior Program Director of Day Camps and Retreats.
All right, that's awesome. But go back to the beginning, because you told us that you were a camper and ended up sort of in the programs that you got to.
Yeah.
So let's get to the beginning.
Yeah, so I have type 1 diabetes, and so I was diagnosed in 2004, and then in 2005, I went to Camp Duncan for one of their partnership camps, which is their diabetes camp. So it's with the ADA, the American Diabetes Association. That was kind of what really got me into camping. It was always my most favorite week of the summer. And then when I was 18 and I couldn't be a camper anymore, I worked there. I started there as a counselor for overnight camp. And then I was on our overnight camp management team, program staff, whatever you want to call it. And then COVID happened. And during the COVID year, I switched from overnight camp to day camp because we weren't running any of our overnight camp programs. And I was like, yeah, okay, this is perfect because I just want to be at camp still this summer, so I'll work day camp then. And I never switched back. And then I became day camp director at Camp Duncan in 2022. And then just this March, I moved to Michigan.
Awesome. So this episode, we're talking about using your camp for more than your traditional actual camp, right? So I think that these kind of YMCAs you've been at, they sort of exemplify that. I know that there's a YMCA down the street from me, an organization, the Camps of the Pines, and they have bereavement camp and they have, all kinds of things like for a week long or 5 days or whatever. And, my son went to a cancer camp at one of these places called Happiness is Camping that gets used constantly for all these different programs. But it's interesting when there's a camp that has a traditional day camp program and then can tack some things on at the end. Or as we do at my camp, and I'm guessing at Sam's, at your municipal program, you probably do things on the weekends, even between camp, right?
Yeah.
So what are some of these programs that your camp organizations have done? Just like a laundry list so people can understand like the amount of things that happen like this.
Yeah, so at Camp Duncan, we ran diabetes camp, of course, and then we also had a camp for kids on dialysis. We had a camp for Tourette's camp for kids with Tourette's. We had a camp called Camp I Am Me, which is for kids with second and third degree burns. And then on the same property, but technically a different camp, is Camp Independence, which is for kids and adults with spina bifida.
And you had the
Right.
alcohol syndrome camp, which was an
Yes.
interesting one thrown in recently.
So these camps you're talking about, 5 days, 6 days, like what do they tend to be?
Typically, it's the same type of, for our overnight camp ones, it's typically the same Sunday check-in, Friday check-out.
But what about are any of these things day camp ones?
So at Camp Duncan, no, but now currently at Camp Colt Mechanic, we have a 1 week of diabetes day camp, and we also have 1 week of a camp called Power Camp, which is for teens with autism.
Oh, that's really terrific. That's great. Well, the thing that sparked this conversation was actually when we came on to our first like podcast thing meeting. Jordana was telling about what they do at Camp Robinhood, which I think is really unbelievable program and a tremendous amount of work. So Jordana, please explain it to these people because I don't think people understand. I think that there's a lot of day camps that they do their 8 or whatever weeks and then they sort of just check on out, right? And then, you have this, a lot of people, if you don't rent your facility, if you actually own your facility, you've got this thing that's just sitting there and fall comes and it's beautiful, right? Even springtime is nice too. And it's like wasted revenue in a way. Like you have the potential to do things, but most people, I'm not going to use the word lazy, but most people are sort of content to do what they do. And then that's it. Sam, of course, goes back. They're running daycare and all this kind of stuff. Sam literally takes the weekend off between
Right.
full camp.
I have 600 kids at 7 sites, school sites, the rest of the year.
Yeah. Yeah. Some people don't rest. But I think that what you guys do at Camp Robinhood, Jordana, could be done at all different places.
Yeah, it's been really interesting over the past few years. It's called Robinhood Leadership Center. So it's kind of like our shoulder season. So outside of our 8 weeks during the summer, we run spring programs and fall programs. And it came about because we have a lot of teachers that work for us and a lot of people going into education that are working at camp. And we noticed like some teachers were saying, our kids would love to come to camp for the day. And there are overnight camps that do a lot of like outdoor ed stuff or staying for the weekend at a camp and it's a retreat for their school. But this is kind of novel that they just get to come for the day. And so we book schools every day. So we're actually in our last week. So we finish tomorrow. And yeah, tomorrow I have 400 kids on site.
Wow.
And they just come for about 5 hours. And our staff are running them through cooperative games, camp activities. They get a high-spirited day outside of the classroom. And we've structured it in a way where they cycle through all different types of programs and get that taste of camp. And it's been really special. And in the fall in particular, we have incoming high school students. So it's only for incoming high school students. So those grade 9s or 9th graders. And we actually train their student leaders. So their mentors who are in grade 11 or 12. So we ask that the schools send their grade 12 students a week before. And we have a whole curriculum and teach them kind of how to be those student leaders and mentors for the grade 9s. So then when the grade 9 day comes, the mentors are really used to support our staff in executing the program. So it's worked out really nicely.
Wow, that is unbelievable.
And
So-
has been a nice revenue stream too, like you were saying. Like it's been
It's
a great
gotta be.
add-on. Yeah.
So just ballpark, and I know Canadian money is a little different than American money, but
Mhm.
you're charging per head, right?
Per head for over 100 students, the day costs close to $30 per student.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of schools that have some grants out there. I know a lot of them have been cut recently, but schools and school boards want these programs for their students. And so it's a really great way to partner with the boards and partner with the schools that are coming in. And so we charge per head, and that gives you each student, it's called a program fee. So all staffing's taken care of, all programming. I love to say to teachers, we've got it. You just book your buses, get your kids to camp, and we'll take care of the rest. And then the schools split them up into groups. And we either have a staff being a group leader or the staff being activity leaders stationed at different activities, running programs that are conducive to school age kids.
And who are these staff that you're using? What is the profile of these people?
Well, staffing is hard. And I'm curious to know from Peggy, too, how the staff works at all these different types of camps. For us in the spring, it's a lot easier to get staff because they're home from school. So they're all looking for jobs. And most of them are actually our senior staff, our supervisors. And so it's incredible, the staff and the amount of staff we have in the spring. And they can also be used when we have a lighter group for prep work for camp. So it really lends itself well to that. In the fall, it is so tricky to hire. It is so hard because everyone's gone back to school. And so it's really a small pool of people. So every year it continues to be a challenge. This year, actually, we're really lucky. We started earlier and we have a great pool of staff who are in their mid-20s and just waiting for their next thing in life and have 5 to 6 weeks available to give to us. But we are an outdoor program, so we end in early October because even today, I know in Markham it was freezing. So we were all bundled up today with the school.
Yeah, no, it was freezing here in New Jersey.
Yeah.
But yeah, just for people here, for the naysayers out there that think that this is crazy, Jordan is in Canada. Okay. So, and she's doing things after camp. So, we have friends that, are in Texas and Florida and California that can do things all year round, and it's no big deal. To me, the impressive thing is that you're pulling this off in Canada. You're squeezing this in before the frost comes.
Yeah, we sure are. And sometimes it's really unpredictable with the weather, but we do about 6 weeks before camp, and then we do 6 weeks after camp. And we book them in November. They're always looking to book back, and it's nice because as each year goes by, we fine-tune the program and we play around with our staffing and the model of all of it. But it's been a nice staple for our program.
So these 400 kids coming tomorrow, right? How many staff do you actually have?
So I have about 25 staff. We run a full high ropes program. And so each group has 2 mentors. So it's about 12 to 15 kids per group, let's say, and then 2 mentors per group that come from the school. And the mentors are like the cabin counselors, and they take them around to all the different activities at camp. And at each activity, we develop these programs that can accommodate up to 4 groups at a time. So it's like we call them the grade 9 games. And so they're always competing and getting points at each one of the activities. We have high ropes and low ropes and archery, but we also have things like Sports Mania and Marble Madness and different activities that are those cooperation games where they have to work together to achieve a goal. So it really bonds them and kind of sets them up for a really nice relationship for their high school careers. And they have those mentors with them throughout the day. And then we hear from schools that these mentors are the ones that are like connecting them throughout the year and being really great resources to them at school. And we provide them snack, and the school can buy pizza that we order for them and then serve. And then we give them a snack at lunch. And at the end of the day, then they get on their buses and they're gone.
Yeah, and your local pizzeria must love you. But yeah, I think, so when Jordana first told me about this, I was like thinking about if I did it and the small amount of my rope staff that would be available to do it. And she told me that they actually hire new ropes people and train, or whoever's available, they'll train them at that point to be ropes.
Well, we put so many people through our ropes. My ropes guys that I hire to train our guys, can't believe how many kids we put through we have a barn filled with different elements and the climbing wall. And it's incredible how many kids we get through in a season, because think it's almost 300 kids a day for 6 weeks that are cycling through that. So we need to be fully staffed, and it's worthwhile to get them fully trained.
And you're finding these staff generally word of mouth? Are you advertising on Indeed? Like all of the above?
Yeah, it involves me usually begging our summer staff and pleading with them at staff meetings throughout the summer. But Indeed was really helpful for us, and connecting with our staff who have friends that are in teachers college or finishing or just finished teachers college but can't get a teaching job just yet. That's the kind of profile we're really looking at. And word of mouth has been great. Our staff have had really awesome experiences. It's really special to have a smaller group of staff that really connects and gets to do this type of work. So they spread the word on their own, and then we get some interest that way. But Indeed was a big one for us this year in particular.
Got it. They must get sick of pizza. I'm joking. But
yeah.
The Day Camp podcast is brought to you by CRS, Commercial Recreation Specialists, your go-to resource for the latest programming and recreation solutions to help your campers thrive. Check out the all-new water tag, where campers suit up in special vests and blast away with high-powered water launchers for the ultimate splash battle. Rev up the fun with new pump tracks, a modular, easy-to-install bike course that brings the need for speed to any camp setting. And when it's time to cool down, FLX Shade delivers stylish, innovative shade with maximum coverage and minimal impact on your site. CRS also offers prefabricated cabins, pavilions, and restroom buildings. Everything you need to create a better camper experience. For more info, visit crsforrec.com. That's CRS, the number 4, REC.com. CRS is serious about fun.
You know how much work goes into building the perfect camp schedule. And when a key staff member leaves, you can feel like starting from scratch. That's where Camptivities comes in. Built for camp people, by camp people. It protects your institutional camp knowledge and ensures every camper gets the schedule you promised. Camptivities does it for all day camps. Auto scheduling for staff, campers, groups, manual adjustments to perfect schedules, over 70 reports for rosters and data analysis, tons of customizable settings, and so much more. Schedule smarter at camptivities.com. Sign up before the new year and save 15% on your first year. Now is the time to do it. We'd love to show you the next big thing in camp. Visit camptivities.com to set up a time to chat. Let them help you get away from your desk and back outside.
Okay, for sure.
Peggy, did you hire at your old job or for the shoulder seasons as well? Or are you doing that now?
I didn't hire for the shoulder seasons before at Camp Duncan, but I do now for our weekend staff. So we have like a pretty robust OE department. And so we've got schools in just about every single day through the second week of November. So for our staff that work Monday to Friday mainly, Zach, our senior program director of outdoor education, hires those staff. And then I hire our weekend instructor team. So for the stuff that we do on the weekends, a lot of times it's like Girl Scout troops and stuff like that in the fall. We also do some like high school orchestra groups that come for their retreat here in choirs. And so I hire our staff that will work Friday evening, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday.
And what kind of programming is that, Peggy? What are they doing on the weekends?
On the weekends, we have all the same types of different activities available for them to choose from. We'll do some of our high rope stuff, some boating through around this week is kind of when it starts to get dicey, when we're really taking the temperature of the water every day to see if it's going to happen still, and making sure we're having schools have maybe a second option for what do you want to do if it's not over 100 degrees for the water and the air. But we have human foosball, which is really cool. And then like some Gaga and some other classic camp games. And then we also do a lot of like STEM type activities. So we have one called Robot Hands, where you use like straws to make your hand into a robot. And Edward, which is like your egg drop activity. And we do one that's like Creature, which is like a game of telephone. Yeah, and some other like STEM stuff like that. And then some different arts and crafts options as well, like candle making and bead buddies, and tie-dye is always a popular option.
That's great.
I
I
know-
find with our programs, like sometimes we want, and we have some rentals at our space too. And I know, Andy, you have a few of those as well. But in terms of like the wear and tear on your site, and also in terms of different groups coming in and out, the different types of camps, the different types of rentals, maybe we can talk a little bit about how we kind of protect our space a little bit. Like I know that when this program used to run, it was very tricky to kind of separate the materials or equipment for what we're using for Leadership Center and then what we're using for camp, right? Or what spaces are being used. And even when I talk about the high ropes area, like our harnesses are getting that wear and tear. When you think about how you kind of move through those programs and the wear and tear on your space, is there anything that comes to mind?
I would say mainly just like communication between our full-time staff team. So like making sure that when stuff gets, because some of our activities will get switched over and used in the summer and then go from being used in the summer to being used in the fall for our OE season. And so just making sure that we're like talking about what the stuff looks like, and oh, this might be our last season of this set of bows maybe, and making sure that I'm communicating to Zach at the end of the summer, like, hey, we went through quite a few bowstrings, so we probably want to order more.
Right.
and those types of things, I would say. And then also just making sure that like during staff training and stuff like that with the counselor type that are going to be teaching and instructing the activity, making sure that you're instilling in them like to keep things nice.
Yeah.
Sam, in your program, do you like when camp is over, do they
Mhm.
lock up all the camp stuff in a trailer and then the next season stuff, like the school stuff, like they have to use their own things?
It took years for us to get them separated, and some of the same supervisors are during the year and then during the summer because I have 9 full-time employees that go from one to the other. But we have 2 camp directors that are teachers during the year, and so I finally got them their own phone, their own laptop, their own pad, all that because they were sharing. Because I had 2 who weren't in charge in the summer and they'd hand theirs off. And that was difficult. But until we had the profit to be able to get them all their own stuff. Now they do have separate storage areas and they have separate budgets. So if it's something that'll go to waste, like if it's leftover, some more stuff, we'll use it the first early release day at school and make s'mores at school so it doesn't go to waste, that kind of thing. But generally, we try to keep them a little separate now. Things don't last as long.
Yeah, no, I think Jordana's question was super relevant. I know
Yeah.
that because we have our event business and we have our camp business. And like I was alluding to at the beginning, like we even have events on the weekends during the summer, and they can't be grabbing the same stuff because we can't on Monday then be like, oh my gosh, there's no more whatevers, like that would not be good because the summer camp business is our primary business and all. And also, and what Peggy said was interesting about communication being like so essential because it's amazing. We're in the same organization, same building, same thing with Sam, right? And yet, like these people are focused on that, and these people are focused on this, and they sort of forget about how things intersect. And when Jordana was first telling me about this, she was telling me she's doing it, right? And they're hiring a new person that's hopefully going to do it in the future, which is great. So you've had the luxury of you having to be forced that was part of your bandwidth to be able to look at both. But it's going to be interesting if next year it's somebody else's thing that you're going to have to be like prodding this person and being like, hey, make sure that when this is done, that we know that when the season's over, if we're going to have to order more for camp, right?
100%. And it was kind of nice for me to be able to do both, to see that bird's eye view of everything. And when it's segmented, Peggy's exactly right. Like that communication breakdown can really have some significant effects on your programming. I know we do events on the weekends too. Even the other day, I was like, where are all those bins go? And we had a picnic on the weekend and no one put the bins back where they were supposed to go. So then you're in trouble for the next couple things that you want to be running. But it is Andy, I'd love to hear more about kind of the events that you do at your space at Liberty Lake so that we can get a sense of what that looks like and how those go.
Sure. Well, when I started Liberty Lake Day Camp, it had been an event site for 25 plus years prior to that. So we sort of took over that business. And it's anything and everything. So in the spring, we do have a lot of school groups having their field days here. Now, look, a lot of schools could have them outside, right? The elementary school that's right near me, they do them right in their backyard, right there. But if they're looking for a more campy thing, like at my camp, they can go boating and they could just do more stuff than they can do in the back with the one gym teacher that they have there, So that's the main thing in the spring. And then once, June rolls around, we basically have every weekend booked except for the holiday weekends through September. And we could have anywhere from 1 to 7 different groups simultaneously. They each have a barbecue area, which is their gathering place. And in these kind of family picnic settings, that's really what they're, family picnics. And a family picnic can be, it can be the Aylmer family picnic. And it's like, you have generations of Aylmers from all over the place. And they just, come and see each other. It's a family reunion, right? But then there's graduation parties and there's class reunions. And then it's the local businesses, come and have their family picnics there for their business. And then we have big Fortune 500 companies that come and have like gigantic ones and they get the whole place to themselves. We have religious groups, a lot of churches and such, and cultural groups and things like that. That'll do it. I mean, we've had people baptizing their kids in the water. And the price of everything is going up, right?
Right.
And having an event at a camp, which is basically one step above a park in many ways, is way cheaper than going to, a big catering hall kind of thing. So, think about it. There's people we know getting married and it's $300 a head or something, and then they come here and it's $60 a head. And, and it's low key and they can wear Hawaiian shirts and they can be barefoot and the kids can go play, and I think that having a day camp set up, that's the important thing, that the kids can go play. Because if you went to a park, you would have to provide all the stuff for the kids to play, right? And frankly, the parents just want to hang out and have a beer and talk to each other. They don't want to have to worry about the kids. So what a day camp space can provide is that, especially if, like we're talking about here, you have program people who you can put into place who can run those things. That's just a huge thing. Now we feed our kids at camp, so we have a catering situation so that we can also feed people at these picnics too. So that's part of the deal. We're not ordering in pizzas. We are making them eat our food, and it's a big barbecue thing and all that kind of thing. So that's part of it.
So, Andy, who's taking over the weekends? Because you can't work 7 days a week in the summer, all those hours.
Yeah, no, that is very true. I tend to come to a lot of them and I'm just doing work inside, and if I'm needed, I'm available kind of thing. But yeah, I have a full-time guy that does it.
That's nice.
And because a lot of camps that I know, they do it and they do it themselves. And like you said, Sam, it's crazy. So they just do, let's say, a dozen over the course of the time. And that's about all they can really handle. But if you get a full-time person to do it, it'll pay for itself. If that person is on a salary that's based on, percentage of revenue, or it's based on commission, they'll pay for itself. And that'll make that person go out and be a salesperson. So my person is a combination salesperson. That's probably most of his job. And then he helps manage the actual event at the actual time and facilitates it. But, it's not just the camp, like someone like me that runs the place, that I'm worried about working 6-7 days a week. It's also my camp staff too. So that's why it's imperative during the season that he go out and find people, that we hire people specifically for picnics, that we can give people an option of working a 6th day of the week to make extra money. And for a lot of people, that's great, but I also don't want to be burning people out. We had so many days this summer that were so hot. And for people to be working 6 days a week in that situation, you're not getting your best camp staff.
You were talking about renting a park. The parks, you still have to pay for a building supervisor and the alcohol license and all these add-ons. So even that can add up. My daughter's friend just had her wedding shower and I got the space for free through me, but I had to be the building supervisor, which was a little nerve-wracking, making sure that, okay, guys, time to get out. We be filling. So yeah, that was not something I do all the time, and I know Camp Duncan fed them, Peggy. So did they
Yes.
do that also for all your groups?
Yeah. So, and actually, what's been really interesting for me is at Camp Duncan, my day campers packed a lunch, and here we eat in the dining hall.
Nice. That is nice.
And for your
We also we do the meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner for all of our groups as well. And then we also provide an evening, like nighttime bedtime snack.
Nice.
You are a leader of your camp and a pillar in your community. When your customers put tremendous trust in you, CampMinder's powerful management tool delivers the day-to-day task support that helps you make every moment memorable and every summer stellar. With 20 plus camp-specific tools in one, CampMinder's user-friendly platform is backed by a full team of engineers and customer service reps who are constantly thinking of ways to help your camp stand the test of time. Visit them today at campminder.com and tell them Andy sent you.
Now, did you have did you see how they picked the groups that would come? I know a lot of the groups at Duncan were traditional. They had been there for years and years and years, those specialty camps. But one of the questions that Jordana had put in there that I thought was really interesting is, how do you make the decision when these camps are coming to you, wanting to use your space for a week? And do you ever say no? Do you have any experience with how they went through that process at all, or hear about some stories?
No, not at Camp Duncan. Here, I know that we kind of like have quite a few conversations leading up to the summer and like looking at, and they'll come and visit and give them a tour. And so the majority of our like partnership specialty camp groups like that are also have been coming for the last 5, 10, 15 years. And just kind of looking at to like where we can make changes to have them their camp align with ours. We have one group that comes and they're all Sikh, and so we have to like we adjust our rules a little bit because our rules say that you're not allowed to have like weapons of any kind, but their men in their religion carry around like knives with them, and so we like adjust our rules so that they're still allowed to have those while they're on site, and it's not like they're not breaking rules every single day.
Gotcha.
I mean, certainly there's a lot of sleepaway camps that can do this pretty easily. I think the interesting thing is camps, people coming in for the day. And in a way, it's easier for people to come into the day for them to take that risk, right? I mean, schools is great. And Jordana, like what you're doing in schools is awesome. And school outreach is great. And it's a great community bonding thing. And it's great for staffing and it's great for getting campers. Like it's great on so many levels. Everybody should be, doing what she does in some way with schools, because why not? You have the facility. But when it comes to things like these bereavement camps and stuff like that, like it's a great idea and you want to do it. And even if you were doing a scholarship, bring in a charity to do like scholarship kids coming and such, it's a big jump for these people to try sleepaway camp. To get them to come 6 days to sleepaway camp when they've never done that before and their parents have never done that before is huge. Day camp is way easier, right? We did a thing with the American Camp Association in New York, New Jersey back in 2001 after September 11th, where we created a thing called Heal the Children, and camps were giving away camp scholarships for the children of the victims. And it was sad how few people used it because they weren't camp people. And all these great sleepaway camps were offering it. And they were like, are you kidding me? So, but day camp, that was like, hey, that sounds like something we could do. So for like a diabetes camp and things like that, for a parent to know that their kid's coming back at the end of the day, it's going to make them feel a lot better. It's going to make it more viable.
Yeah, and we've had some of those specialized groups rent out our facility for the day, which has been really special. And it's actually been really special for our staff to participate in those and support them. We just had a group in the spring that supported campers who stutter and their parents. And so the families and the kids came for the day, and it was an entire day with specialized programming. So our staff partner with the staff from their programs to execute a day that would facilitate their program, but in our setting. So we did some of our things. They used our playgrounds, they used our sports facilities, but they also sent staff to do it. So I think that those partnerships are really unique and something worth looking into to fill up more of those days. If you're a camp that's looking for other things or you want to create another stream to look at and to offer your staff opportunities, it's a great way to create some more jobs out there. And it's also a great way to connect with the community. And what happens when you connect with the community, inevitably, it brings out more word of mouth about your camp as well. So we had a birthday party that they hosted at camp. They rented out the whole facility. We do picnics on the weekends for like 6 hours, and they did a whole birthday party. And what do you know? We get some calls the next week being like, hey, do you have any more space for this summer? Because people are on site seeing what's going on at camp. We've done some baseball intercamp things where different camps come just for the day because they're all overnight camps from everywhere, but they're back in the city for a bit, and we're hosting a baseball tournament because we have the Diamonds and we're about 30 minutes out from the city. So it's really interesting to see those unique things that are happening. Along the lines of what Peggy was talking about, I think the more experience I get doing some of these rentals, I learn about boundaries a lot and kind of what we're willing to give on our end and what the expectations of the clients are also. And so I think it's really interesting to learn about where we kind of put our foot down, where we also want to individualize the picnics or the events for the people coming in. I think for our programs, because they go every day, whether it be the schools or the picnics, it's worked out for us to have stronger boundaries of saying, this is the program, this is what you sign up for, here's where we're willing to budge a little bit or have a la carte options for you to choose from, but here's where our hard stop is. So what's your experience been, Peggy, Andy, Sam, about about that and with those boundaries and how you navigate that?
Make a very solid agreement that lays it all out and that you go over with them. I mean, I think that's the start of it. It can't be loosey-goosey, like you said.
Yeah,
You
you
know?
get into trouble when it's so loosey.
Yeah, and you really have to think through, like, what could happen kind of stuff. For instance, we have this big group that comes, this big religious group. They always stay too late, always. So we learned we're going to put it in there. The event ends at this time. If you stay for another hour, we're going to charge you $1,500. If you stay for another hour after that, we're going to charge you $3,000 extra. Like, we just put in these punitive kind of things. And sometimes they're like, okay, we're out of here. Sometimes like, you know what, we're going to stay another hour or two. And we're like, all right, it's good for us now.
Yeah, so listeners, learn from us. Just tighten up your agreements there, because I had the same thing with the school. Every year we noticed a trend that they would just say they booked the buses for a certain time, but because of how the bus routes had to go, the buses would always be an hour late. And so we did the exact same thing and put in our contract.
I think another thing is, don't be afraid to hire muscle. So if you're going to have a big group, hire security. And they don't have to be, it doesn't have to be like crazy security company, $100 an hour people. It's like that. They don't have to have guns, like things like that. It could just be people who are like, even if they're like bouncers, people who know how to remove people who know how to stop people from doing things.
Not a good bouncer.
Yeah. It's hard kicking people out of your place. You know, if you have somebody that is capable of that, God bless. But if you don't, hire somebody that's going to be there for that, that can be there to break up a fight. You never know when something's going to happen, right? We all watch the news and get push notifications on our phone that drive us crazy. Like, crazy things can happen. Be prepared for it. And then in lines with that, also EMTs. Like, there should be in your head, like, if it's even with a school, Jordana, if they're not sending a nurse with them, like, okay, great. So now what happens when this kid falls, is gushing blood out of their leg? Okay, we're just calling 911. Are we dealing it? You know, that comes up to me all the time. Do you guys have Band-Aids? You guys have ice packs? You guys have this? I'm like, you're a school. Like, don't you have a nurse?
Oh, it shocks me every day. We're doing attendance, and we have our staff do a brief group attendance for each group that comes. And then we check with the schools and we're like, so how many students did you bring? You would be shocked how many schools have no clue how many students they brought on the bus. And I was like, let me call my secretary. I was like, well, this is a field trip. How do we not know how many students are coming on the bus and off the bus at camp? And I'm more concerned about having all the buses leave, because I'm like, do we have everyone? The teacher's like, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, oh my goodness. But the med stuff is very significant. And that's another thing to be outlined in the expectations, because the amount of times I have students and teachers come up being like, oh, do you have Advil for a student? Do you have this for a student? Our policy is that we don't give out medication. And so oftentimes I'll put it on the school and say, well, what would you do if you were at school right now? But it obviously depends. And I think the tricky part is, I have staff that are with us during the summer that extend for our fall programs or spring. And so they're used to how we would handle things in our camp setting. And I look like the big bad guy when I'm like, no, guys, we're not doing that, because it's a totally different relationship, because these students aren't our clients, as if like they didn't register for our programs. It's through the school. And so you really have to think of it differently like that.
No doubt.
Peggy, I didn't ask you earlier, where is your location? Are you outside? Do you work at a place in the winter in the town? Are you always at the outdoor center? Maybe explain a little.
Yeah, we're always at camp. So we have no real like down. It gets a little bit slower December, January, February, but we still have a couple groups that come in for like weekend winter retreats in the colder months as well. And so our like office building at camp is open all year long. And so we still come into the regular camp office.
So
how
you
far
don't have
is
to
it
worry.
from how far is it from downtown Flint, Michigan?
It's about 20 minutes.
That's great. So it's a wooded like thing. It's like typical looking YMCA.
You don't have to worry about before and
as my
after.
dad said when he helped me move in here, he said, oh, this is a camp. This is very camp looking. And I said, okay, good.
Oh, that's great.
We're kind of right off like a highway. And then it's one where from the road, when you're looking past, when you're driving past, you're like, yeah, okay, I wonder what's back there. And then when you drive in, you're like, oh, there's a lot back here.
Yeah.
Nice.
Another thing, advice, is payment things, right? When you're dealing with schools, it's unlike anything else. You have to submit like your invoice like a month ahead, and it's got to get approved. I don't know, at a board meeting. I don't know,
Yeah.
but like it just takes forever.
Yes, it does.
And you just have to anticipate that with some of these organizations or a family reunion or stuff like that. Like you got to get paid before they get there. You cannot be waiting. It's not like pay me after this thing. You may never see this, and then you have nothing to hold on them. With a big like corporation, we get a big chunk of money up front, and then we are going to get the balance afterwards. And the balance is going to depend on how many people come. So it's, like Jordana says, counting the kids on the bus. And if they come in on a bus, it's hard. You're not like, you go up there, you're counting this bus,
Well, and picnics are really hard to count, right? To count how many people come on site for picnics is really tricky. So thinking of what your pricing model is, and is it up to 250 people, and then there's a different price if they want to bring between 250 and 500 people. Like thinking of it like that is something we've definitely learned of. It's because it's very hard to control for how many people are coming on site.
Yeah. And Peggy mentioned alcohol. That is a big thing. Or no, Sam, you mentioned having an alcohol license, right? That is a big deal too, because if you're doing a social event, they're going to want to have alcohol, and that has implications. It has legal implications for you. But on top of that, it's the implications of, okay, so then what if they bring alcohol to a picnic at Camp Robinhood and then they get in a car accident on the way home? Like, who's liable and all this kind of thing? Is that in the agreement? Like, that's all stuff you need to run past lawyers, because you don't want to get on the hook for that. But,
Yeah, and every school and every board is different. And I think making sure that you know about all those things, I mean, get a whole education when you start doing it, Peggy. When you start making those contracts, it's crazy. Like you learn so much, and then you learn how different each party might be. Like for some school boards, I have to do a full vendor kind of disclosure of what we do. And so you have to get approved on a list before they can come to your site. So different things like that, and learning about the different boards and systems around you is really important.
yeah. And look, Peggy's doing things for diabetic kids and stuff like that, and for kids with dialysis and stuff. Like you have to make sure that the proper amount of medical people are on site for those kind of things. And, if a hospital's coming, like, okay, they got their act in order. But if you're just doing this, like the kindness of your heart kind of, group coming, like they're not thinking about things the way that you do as a day camp professional, and to go back to like that expectations, like them coming to you and asking for Advil and stuff, because they're doing this at a camp, the people coming have a set of expectations that like, oh, we're going to the gay camp. Of course they have a nurse there.
Yeah.
Like, meanwhile, no, it's September. So yeah, that kind of stuff. It's dotting your I's and crossing your T's and all that kind of thing.
I want to congratulate Peggy too, because she's on our junior American Camp Association Illinois.
Very nice.
So she's getting started in the profession, and we think she's gonna really shoot to the sky.
Yeah, even though she moved to Michigan, you're keeping her around?
Yeah. She wasn't able to come to the in-person retreat, but because she had groups that she was doing at the time. So,
Yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, before we go, I want to plug ACA a little bit also, because yesterday I spent the day at the ACA New York and New Jersey Day Camp Conference. And we were on Long Island and visited two awesome places, Crestwood Day Camp and Shibley Day Camp. And there were 250 day camp professionals on this little tour, right? And the camps just did a wonderful job of keeping all their stuff like looking great and all. These are not camps that do outdoor ed and things like that in the off season. So they really had to keep it going, and they brought in great staff to give tours and such like that. And we just learned so much. I just cannot recommend more to visit people's camps. And it doesn't have to be at a formal conference like this. If there's camps out there, whether they're your competitors or not, like just call them up and be like, hey, how about my people come to your camp and then your people come to my camp? And just walking around the camp and just hearing how people do things is just so great. And every camp is different. And, like Crestwood camp is like, it's just beautiful and high end and like spare no expense in some areas. And you're just like, wow, like it's awesome to see what you can do, what the potential is there to do in so many areas. But I learned just as much at the second camp, which was a lot more rustic and a lot more, like you said, Peggy, it looks like a camp, right? It just had that vibe, and it was really neat on a totally different level. So yeah, I thank you to those two camps, to Adam Wallach and crew, and Transport and Hammerdinger over at Crestwood, who have both been on this podcast. We're gonna have to get our friend from Shibley to come over because to talk about how they got their camp going back again, because it was a project getting that place back on its feet, and they've done a wonderful job there.
You know how I found out about all these different camps was being an accreditation visitor. It's a good way to get to see a lot of different programs. So that's always an outlet for people too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's great networking. I mean, that was the best party yesterday, besides seeing the camp, is seeing so many friends, and and so many people who have been on this podcast. And I had a whole bunch of people who came to me and said, because it was driving to Long Island, you're in the car for at least an hour, okay, for wherever you're coming from. And so many people came up to me and was like, oh, I just listened to your last episode of the podcast on our way here. And they had follow-up questions.
Did they?
Yeah. Well, you know what hit a chord with a lot of people?
Oh, what was it?
Our conversation about sometimes it's time for people to move on.
Yeah, that's a hard one.
Yeah, that really
That's
hit
a big
chord for
one.
people. Yeah, so much so that a camp I know thought that I was talking about them, and I wasn't. I was talking about my camp, actually. But yeah, we do. I mean, Sam, when we were Tri-State, right? People come to us all the time, thanking for us. So thank you for all that listen. Thank you, Peggy, for being on today. And we have a great next episode lined up. It's going to be about bringing the Sleepaway Camp spirit. We have two people who have worked at day camp and Sleepaway Camp that are going to be talking about that. And I want to thank our friends at Campminder, Camptivities, and Commercial Recreation Specialists for bringing this to you. If you like what you hear, you should subscribe. Check out the show notes. And Jordana has a great webpage for her program there.
Yeah, we could put in the show notes.
Yeah, you got to put that in the show notes. I'll put my picnic business in the show notes. And I didn't even talk about my Renaissance Fair, because that started as a shoulder business at Liberty Lake. And
Throw that in there too, Andy.
I'll throw that in. That's gotten so big now that we had to move it off. And, you talked about wear and tear, Jordana. That's one of the reasons that we actually had to get rid of it, because on a rainy day, it was just shredding our place. Thousands of people shredding our place. And it was before camp started, so it would ruin it for the whole summer. So yeah, we're very happy that it has moved elsewhere. But yeah, check out the show notes. We'll have links to Peggy's present and past camps, and Peggy, try to get the links of the specialty camps if possible. That would be great. And of course, contact information for all of us. So thanks for listening. Thanks for making yourself a better Day Camp Pro. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode of the Day Camp Pod.
The Day Camp Podcast is brought to you by Go Camp Pro and the Go Camp Pro Podcast Network. Find a podcast for camp professionals of every age and stage at gocamp.pro/podcast. Thanks for listening, friends. Hey, Camp Pros, we love that our industry is built on sharing. In order to foster that spirit, we hope that whenever you share an idea that you learned from the Camp Hacker podcast, conference, summer camp professionals group, or wherever else, that you're quick to give credit where credit is due. That way, we can all encourage more camp pros to share the tips and tricks that will make camp better.